Millionaire hires nanny for sick daughter, installs cameras, and discovers something shocking. Evelyn Harper has it all: a successful career, a luxurious Boston mansion, and most importantly, her beloved daughter Lily. But when Lily's rare medical condition requires special care, Evelyn is forced to make a decision that will change her life forever: hiring a nanny. Rachel Morgan seems like the perfect candidate: young, dedicated, and highly recommended. But after installing security cameras in her home, Evelyn begins to notice strange behaviors that make her question: is Rachel really there to help? Or is there something more sinister behind her true intentions? Chapter 1. Evelyn Harper woke up early, as she always did. Her daily routine began before sunrise in her Boston mansion. At 40, Evelyn was a successful businesswoman known for her ability to transform businesses into genuine financial empires. But within her immaculate house, far from the spotlight and business meetings, she was just a mother fighting against desperation. Lily, her 1-year-old daughter, was the reason for this struggle. Diagnosed with a rare disease, Lily required constant, specialized care. Evelyn did everything she could to balance her professional obligations with caring for her daughter, but the pressure was overwhelming. The silent, luxurious house reflected the loneliness Evelyn felt. Even surrounded by wealth, something essential was missing: emotional and human support. That morning, while holding Lily in her arms, Evelyn felt the weight of her own exhaustion. The girl, fragile and small, depended entirely on her. Every solution seemed temporary, each day a new battle against uncertainty. During breakfast, Evelyn made a decision: she needed help. Hiring a nanny wasn't something Evelyn had considered doing, at least until that moment. In fact, although she resisted bringing someone into her home, deep down, she knew she needed someone she could trust, not just an employee, but an extension of herself. Only then could she ensure Lily would be safe and loved. Throughout the day, she reviewed numerous resumes. None seemed to meet her expectations until she found a name that caught her attention: Rachel Morgan. Young, 23 years old, recommended by a close friend. The description indicated a dedicated person with experience caring for children in delicate situations. Evelyn hesitated. It was difficult to trust strangers, but something about Rachel's profile seemed different. She scheduled an interview for the following day. The rest of the afternoon was spent watching Lily play. Despite her condition, the little girl had a contagious joy. But Evelyn couldn't ignore the constant worry that consumed every moment of her life. While watching Lily reach out for a toy, Evelyn was overcome with a wave of guilt. Was she failing as a mother? The pressure to be everything, businesswoman, caregiver, provider, weighed heavily on her shoulders. She knew it was time to share this responsibility, but the idea of letting someone else care for Lily was terrifying. What if something went wrong? As night fell, Evelyn sat alone in her spacious office. Surrounded by walls covered with awards and certificates of her achievements, she felt paradoxically small. She reviewed Rachel's resume once more, jotting down questions for the interview. She knew the magnitude of this decision, not just for Lily, but for her own sanity. Evelyn remembered her mother's words, who had passed away years ago: asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It was a difficult lesson to learn, but one Evelyn was ready to accept. Before bed, Evelyn went to Lily's room. She watched her daughter sleep deeply, her chest rising and falling with difficulty due to her respiratory condition. The girl looked so fragile, yet so resilient. Evelyn gently touched Lily's soft hair, feeling a mixture of love and despair. With a heavy sigh, Evelyn whispered to herself, "I need to make this work." Back in her room, Evelyn decided it was time to take additional precautions. She added to her mental list the idea of installing security cameras in the house. It wasn't paranoia, it was protection. Evelyn knew her trust in Rachel would take time to develop, and monitoring their interactions was the only way to ensure Lily's safety. In the darkness of her room, Evelyn's thoughts mixed between hopes and fears. And in the silence of that night, through the impeccable corridors of her mansion, a new chapter was about to begin in Evelyn's life. A decision that would change everything forever. Chapter 2. Rachel arrived at the Harper mansion promptly at 8 in the morning. Evelyn watched from the window as the young woman stepped out of her modest car with a shoulder bag. Despite her apparent shyness, Rachel carried herself with confidence. Evelyn opened the door and greeted her with a discreet but evaluating smile. She needed help, but still felt the weight of trusting a stranger. "Rachel, welcome. Let's go to the living room," Evelyn said, leading her through the spacious hallway. Rachel followed quietly, her eyes discreetly taking in the luxurious interior. When they reached the living room, Evelyn offered her a seat on the sofa. "Let's talk about your experience." Rachel shared that she had worked with 2 families before, both with children in delicate health conditions. Her voice was calm but assured as she described her responsibilities. Evelyn asked direct questions, trying to identify signs of exaggeration or insecurity in her answers. However, everything she heard seemed sincere. "What made you want to work with children in such challenging situations?" Evelyn asked, crossing her legs and resting her arms in her lap. Rachel hesitated for a moment, as if weighing her words. "I lost a younger sister when I was a teenager. She had a very serious health condition. After that, I realized I wanted to help families going through similar situations. I know how difficult it is." The sincere tone and unexpected confession touched Evelyn. Although there was still natural suspicion, the businesswoman felt empathy. It wasn't just about qualifications. Rachel seemed to have a genuine reason for wanting to be there. After nearly an hour of conversation, Evelyn took Rachel to Lily's room. The little girl was sleeping peacefully in her crib. Rachel approached slowly, observing the child with a tender look. "She's beautiful," she said softly. Evelyn, standing by the door with crossed arms, watched. For a brief moment, she felt she might have found the right person. "I've installed cameras throughout the house," Evelyn said, breaking the silence. Rachel turned to her, surprised but not offended. "I understand. You want to make sure everything's okay with Lily. I would do the same." Rachel's calm response surprised Evelyn. After a pause, Evelyn explained Lily's routines, meal times, medications, and the specific care her condition required. Rachel listened attentively, asking relevant questions. Her attitude was professional yet empathetic. By the end of the day, Evelyn decided to give Rachel a chance. It wasn't an easy decision, but the situation demanded action. Rachel brought her things the next morning and was officially introduced to Lily, who was waking from a nap. The girl looked at Rachel curiously. Rachel smiled, approaching slowly. "Hi, Lily. I'm Rachel. I'll be taking care of you." Evelyn observed the interaction from afar. There was something about the way Rachel handled Lily that seemed natural, almost instinctive. Lily, usually reserved with strangers, didn't cry or pull away. Evelyn felt a glimmer of hope but kept her guard up. During Rachel's first hours of care, everything went smoothly. Evelyn monitored the camera footage while working in her office. Rachel was careful and attentive, keeping Lily entertained with toys and simple activities. However, while reviewing the recordings that night, Evelyn noticed something that left her uneasy. Rachel was seen talking on the phone in Lily's room, in a low, urgent tone. Evelyn turned up the volume but could only catch a few words. "She can't know. Everything's under control." Discomfort settled in Evelyn. Who was she? And what shouldn't they know? Evelyn decided not to confront Rachel immediately. She needed to observe more before drawing conclusions. However, this first night brought back all the insecurities she had felt before hiring the young woman. In the following days, Rachel continued to care for Lily with dedication. The girl seemed calmer and more content, which should have reassured Evelyn, but the words she'd heard on the phone wouldn't leave her mind. The discomfort grew each night as Evelyn reviewed the footage and found small behaviors that intrigued her, like Rachel whispering to Lily while rocking her to sleep. On the 5th night, Evelyn saw something that truly alarmed her. Rachel took a small box from her pocket and placed it on the nightstand beside the crib. After making sure Lily was sound asleep, she opened the box and looked at its contents before quickly closing it. Evelyn paused the recording, zooming in on the image. The box was too small to contain anything dangerous, but the gesture seemed loaded with intention. The next morning, Evelyn decided to check Lily's room while Rachel was in the kitchen. She found the small box hidden in the back of a drawer. She hesitated before opening it. Inside were folded letters and an old photograph of a child who wasn't Lily. Evelyn recognized Rachel in the photo, holding the hand of a smaller girl. Evelyn didn't know what to think. The letters weren't addressed, but they were clearly important to Rachel. She closed the box and returned it to its place, trying to organize her thoughts. What else was Rachel hiding? And what did this mean for Lily? The feeling of insecurity returned full force, but Evelyn decided to wait before taking any action. For now, she needed more answers, and above all, she needed to protect her daughter. Chapter 3. The following days brought a mix of routine and unease for Evelyn. Rachel seemed to perform her duties with dedication and precision, but the doubts planted by the footage left Evelyn restless. Every time she saw Rachel interact with Lily, Evelyn felt an internal conflict. On one hand, the nanny seemed to genuinely take good care of the girl. On the other, the unanswered questions about the small box and the mysterious phone call lingered like a constant shadow. On the 6th night since Rachel started working in the house, Evelyn decided to review the recordings again. This time she paid attention to every detail, looking for something that could either confirm or dispel her suspicions. Throughout the video, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Rachel followed the routines carefully, bathing Lily, preparing her bottle, and putting her to bed with what appeared to be genuine affection. However, just before midnight, something caught her attention. Rachel went to Lily's room with a notebook in hand. She sat in the armchair next to the crib and began writing. Evelyn tried to zoom in on the footage but couldn't make out what Rachel was writing. She stayed there for almost an hour, alternating between looking at Lily and writing in the notebook. Before leaving, she gently kissed the girl's forehead and turned off the lights. The next day, Evelyn decided to proceed with caution. She didn't want to accuse Rachel of anything without concrete evidence, but she needed to better understand what was happening. During breakfast, she started a casual conversation. "Rachel, I noticed you like to write," Evelyn said, trying to sound friendly. "I saw you with a notebook in Lily's room last night. What do you usually write down?" Rachel seemed surprised by the observation, but answered calmly. "I make notes about her routine, schedules, behaviors, things that might help better understand her needs. I think it's important to keep detailed records." The explanation seemed plausible, but Evelyn still felt there was more to it. She decided to test Rachel in another way. "I see. That's good. Actually, I was thinking about organizing Lily's health records. Maybe we could review them together sometime." Rachel nodded with a smile, but Evelyn noticed a slight tension in her expression. Something about the suggestion seemed to have bothered the young woman. Determined to investigate further, Evelyn called an old friend who was a private detective. She explained the situation without going into many personal details and asked him to check Rachel's background. She wanted to be sure about who was inside her house. While waiting for the detective's response, Evelyn continued to observe Rachel closely. One afternoon, she heard a sound coming from Lily's room and went up to check. She stopped at the door when she heard Rachel whispering. The words were gentle, almost like a lullaby, but something in the tone seemed heavy with emotion. Evelyn stayed quiet, watching through the crack in the door. Rachel was holding Lily's hand and saying, "You'll be all right, I promise. Nothing bad will happen to you." It was a touching scene, but Evelyn couldn't shake her suspicion. Why did Rachel seem so emotionally involved with a child she'd known for just a few days? This intense connection seemed to go beyond what would be expected from a professional. At the end of the week, the detective returned with information that further complicated the situation. He discovered that Rachel had been a witness in a court case a few years ago involving the death of a child under a nanny's care. Rachel wasn't the culprit, but her testimony had been crucial in convicting the responsible party. Since then, she seemed to have dedicated her life to protecting vulnerable children. Evelyn was torn. Part of her wanted to believe that Rachel was there just to help Lily, motivated by traumatic experiences from her past. But another part couldn't ignore the strange behavior and secrets that seemed to surround the young woman. That night, Evelyn reviewed the footage once more. This time, she noticed a pattern. Every night after putting Lily to sleep, Rachel spent about half an hour on the phone, always in the same low, urgent tone. Evelyn turned up the volume, hoping to catch something clearer. Finally, she made out a phrase, "I'm taking care of her. You can't interfere now." The distrust became unbearable. Evelyn needed answers and decided she couldn't wait any longer. The next morning, she called Rachel for a talk. "Rachel, I need to talk to you about some things I've noticed. I want to better understand what's going on here," said Evelyn, maintaining a firm but controlled tone. Rachel seemed to hesitate for a moment, but finally responded, "Of course, what do you want to know?" Before Evelyn could continue, Lily started crying in the next room. Rachel immediately stood up and went to the girl, leaving Evelyn alone with her doubts. As frustrating as the interruption was, Evelyn knew this confrontation was just the beginning. The truth about Rachel was still far from being revealed, but Evelyn was determined to get to the bottom of this story. Chapter 4. After the interrupted conversation, Evelyn felt she was getting closer to discovering what Rachel was really hiding. However, the morning passed without another opportunity to speak with the young woman. Rachel seemed oblivious to Evelyn's suspicions, caring for Lily with her usual dedication. But Evelyn knew she could no longer ignore the signs. That afternoon, Evelyn decided to act. While Rachel took Lily for a walk in the garden, Evelyn went to the nanny's room. She carefully opened the closets and drawers, trying to find something that would confirm her suspicions. That's when she saw the small box again, the same one she had found in Lily's room. This time, Evelyn decided to examine it more closely. Inside the box, she found a new letter and a small child's bracelet with a name engraved, Molly. Evelyn frowned. The name meant nothing to her, but it was clear it held great importance to Rachel. The letter, written in careful handwriting, appeared to be a personal confession. Evelyn read only the first few lines before putting everything back. The opening words were enough to confirm that Molly was someone very close to Rachel, and that her loss still haunted her. Meanwhile, in the garden, Rachel played with Lily, helping her walk on the grass. The scene seemed normal, but Evelyn couldn't shake the feeling that something was out of place. When the two came back inside, Evelyn tried to stay calm. She needed more information before confronting Rachel again. That night, Evelyn decided to check the live footage instead of watching the videos later. She sat in her office and turned on the camera feed. Rachel, as usual, put Lily to bed and stayed by the crib for a while. Then, she left the room and went to her own. Evelyn watched as Rachel picked up the phone and made a call. Although she couldn't hear everything clearly, she caught fragments that left her even more intrigued. "I told you I'm taking care of it. No one can find out now. Please, trust me." Evelyn felt her blood run cold. Who was on the other end of the line? And what was so important for Rachel to hide? She decided it was time to take more drastic measures. She picked up the phone and called the detective again, asking him to investigate the name Molly and any other connections that might exist in Rachel's past. She couldn't delay any longer. The next morning, Rachel seemed calm, as if nothing had happened. Evelyn, on the other hand, was in a constant state of alert. She tried to act naturally, but Rachel seemed to notice something was different. "Is everything all right, Mrs. Harper?" the young woman asked while preparing Lily's breakfast. "Yes, of course. Just a tiring week," Evelyn replied, trying to hide her tension. While waiting for the detective's return call, Evelyn continued analyzing Rachel's behavior. At the same time, she began to reflect on the possibility that she was being unfair. It was evident that Rachel had a painful past, but did that justify all her actions? Was Evelyn overreacting with her suspicions? These questions tormented her, but she knew she would only find peace when she discovered the whole truth. 2 days later, the detective returned with new information. He confirmed that Molly was Rachel's younger sister who had died tragically years ago. But what really caught attention was another detail. Rachel had been involved with a support group for families who had lost children in traumatic circumstances. The group, apparently legitimate, also had connections to experimental research focused on treating rare diseases in children. This discovery set off an alarm in Evelyn. Lily was being treated for a rare condition, and now there was a direct connection between Rachel and these experimental treatments. Evelyn decided she couldn't wait any longer. She needed to confront Rachel immediately. That night, after putting Lily to bed, Evelyn called Rachel for a conversation in the office. The young woman seemed uncomfortable but tried to maintain her composure. "Rachel, I need answers. I know about Molly. I know about the support group. And I know you've been hiding things since you arrived here. I want to know the truth, now." Rachel went pale. She looked at Evelyn for a few seconds before finally speaking. "I never meant to deceive you, Mrs. Harper. Everything I did was to help Lily." "Help Lily? What do you mean by that? What exactly are you talking about?" Rachel took a deep breath before continuing. "I researched treatments that could help children like Lily. There are some experimental studies being developed, and I thought I could find something that would make a difference. I just wanted to help." Evelyn felt a mixture of anger and confusion. "Are you saying you used my daughter for some kind of experiment without my consent?" "No, I never did anything to Lily. I just researched. I wanted to be prepared in case you wanted to try something new. I know what it's like to lose someone you love because you didn't try every possibility." Rachel's desperate tone seemed sincere, but Evelyn was still incredulous. "You should have come to me. You should have been honest from the beginning." Rachel lowered her head. "I know, I was wrong, but please believe me. Everything I did was thinking of Lily's well-being." Evelyn fell silent, processing everything she had just heard. Although she still had doubts, something in Rachel's tone seemed genuine. But that wasn't enough. Evelyn knew she needed to decide what to do with the information she had. Her priority would always be protecting Lily. And now, more than ever, that protection would require difficult choices. Chapter 5. After the intense conversation in the office, Evelyn felt torn between anger and confusion. Rachel seemed sincere, but the secrets and omissions still weighed heavily. Although the young woman's desperate tone had rung true, Evelyn knew she couldn't simply ignore everything. It was her responsibility to protect Lily, and Rachel's presence in the house now seemed more of a risk than a support. The next morning, Evelyn woke up determined to take more definitive action. While Rachel was bathing Lily, Evelyn reviewed the information the detective had gathered again. Beyond the support group, another detail caught her attention. Rachel had a history of accessing medical and pharmaceutical databases. This reinforced the idea that the young woman had been researching experimental treatments, but it also raised the possibility of deeper involvement, something Rachel hadn't yet revealed. Meanwhile, Rachel continued with her routine, apparently oblivious to the growing tension. During breakfast, she tried to start a casual conversation, but Evelyn was cold, responding only when necessary. Sensing the atmosphere, Rachel remained silent, focusing her attention on Lily, who was playing with a piece of bread in her high chair. "I need to go out to handle some important matters today," Evelyn announced to Rachel. "I'm trusting you to take good care of Lily while I'm gone." Rachel nodded but seemed uncomfortable with Evelyn's tone. As soon as Evelyn left, Rachel turned her attention back to Lily, trying to hide her concern. Evelyn, on the other hand, drove straight to the detective's office. She needed more answers before deciding what to do. At the office, the detective presented new information. He had investigated Rachel's connections to the support group more deeply and discovered something disturbing. Some members of this group were involved in a scheme of unregulated medical trials. Although there was no concrete evidence that Rachel was directly involved in these activities, her proximity to those involved was cause enough for concern. "Evelyn, I can't say she's done anything illegal," said the detective. "But the coincidences are alarming. I would recommend caution." Evelyn left the office feeling the weight of responsibility grow even heavier. Her mind was full of questions. Was Rachel really trying to help Lily, or was there something more sinister in her intentions? Back at the mansion, Evelyn found Rachel in Lily's room. The young woman was reading a children's book to the girl, who lay with her eyes fixed on the colorful illustrations. "Rachel, we need to talk again. Now," Evelyn said firmly, gesturing for the young woman to follow her to the office. Rachel hesitated but obeyed. As soon as they sat down, Evelyn was direct. "I know more than you think. About the group, about the experimental trials. I want you to tell me the complete truth. Why did you really come to my house?" Rachel took a deep breath, her eyes fixed on the floor. After a long silence, she began to speak. "When I took this job, it was because I needed a chance to make up for past mistakes. I was never directly involved in the trials, but I saw up close what happened to other families. I couldn't prevent the tragedy that happened to my sister, and that haunts me every day. When I learned about Lily's condition, I felt I needed to do something. Not to experiment or take risks, but to ensure she had all the chances my sister never had. Evelyn crossed her arms, maintaining a serious expression. And you thought hiding things from me was the best way? What kind of help depends on lies and secrets? Rachel lifted her gaze, her eyes full of unshed tears. I was afraid you wouldn't trust me if you knew everything from the start. I just wanted to help, but I see now that I made a mistake. No matter how much I try to justify it, you're right to be angry. Rachel's tone seemed sincere, but Evelyn was still divided. As much as she wanted to believe in the young woman's intentions, she couldn't ignore the risks. She needed to think clearly, without letting emotion cloud her judgment. Rachel, from now on, everything needs to be transparent. If I even suspect you're hiding anything else, you'll have to leave this house immediately. Understood? Rachel nodded, visibly dejected. Understood, Mrs. Harper. Thank you for giving me this chance. In the days that followed, Evelyn monitored Rachel even more closely. The tension between them was enormous, but Rachel seemed determined to regain Evelyn's trust. She cared for Lily with even more dedication, keeping Evelyn informed about every detail of the girl's routine. Despite this, Evelyn couldn't completely relax. One night, while reviewing the camera footage, Evelyn noticed something strange. Rachel was in Lily's room, as usual, but seemed to be searching for something. The young woman opened drawers, looked under the crib, and even checked the closet. Evelyn frowned. What could Rachel be looking for? The next morning, Evelyn decided to confront Rachel again. What were you looking for in Lily's room last night? She asked directly. Rachel was visibly flustered. I thought I had lost a bracelet I always wear. I didn't want to bother you, so I looked for it myself. Evelyn wasn't convinced, but decided not to push. She knew the next few weeks would be crucial in determining whether Rachel was truly trustworthy or not. Until then, she would remain vigilant, always prioritizing her daughter's safety above everything else. Chapter 6. After weeks of growing tension, Evelyn felt she was at her breaking point. Rachel, despite showing dedication and professionalism in her routine with Lily, remained an enigma. Evelyn continued to watch the young woman's every move carefully, looking for signs that she could trust her, or, conversely, that her suspicions were justified. At this point, Evelyn knew she needed a more decisive approach. That morning, Evelyn decided to review Lily's medical notes and diaries. She carefully reorganized the documents, trying to identify any clues that might connect Rachel to something bigger. While leafing through the papers, she found an intriguing detail. A note scribbled on a loose sheet. The words were brief but significant. Promising results, but risky. Need to monitor side effects. The note seemed recent, and Evelyn didn't remember writing it. Trying to stay calm, Evelyn called the doctor responsible for Lily's treatment. During the conversation, she confirmed there were no new studies or recent advances that would justify that message. Intrigued, Evelyn realized she needed to confront Rachel again. That afternoon, Evelyn chose a strategic moment to approach Rachel. While Lily was sleeping, she called the young woman to the office. The atmosphere was tense from the start of the conversation. Rachel, I want to know exactly what you've been doing beyond Lily's basic care. I found something among her documents that concerns me. Evelyn placed the note on the desk, staring intently at the young woman. Rachel hesitated, clearly nervous, but finally responded, I don't know how that note ended up among Lily's documents. I would never do anything to put her health at risk. Evelyn remained silent for a moment before continuing. Then explain to me why, once again, it seems you're involved in something you haven't shared with me. Rachel took a deep breath before answering. I did research alternative treatments, but only because I thought they might be useful in the future. I never took any action without your permission. I know I seem suspicious, but everything I did was out of concern for Lily. Rachel's explanation seemed plausible, but Evelyn wasn't convinced. She decided she needed to go further. That night, she accessed the security cameras again, focusing on the past few days. Reviewing the videos, she noticed something alarming. Rachel was leaving the house late at night and returning shortly after. What could justify these unannounced departures? Evelyn chose to follow her. The next night, she waited for Rachel to leave and discreetly followed her by car. To her surprise, Rachel went to a small clinic downtown. Evelyn parked at a safe distance and watched as the young woman went inside. She waited for almost an hour until Rachel came out, carrying an envelope. On the way back home, Evelyn felt consumed by distrust. Upon arrival, she decided to confront Rachel directly. "I followed you today," Evelyn said as soon as Rachel walked through the door. The shock on the young woman's face was evident. "You followed me?" Rachel responded, her voice trembling. "Yes. You went to a clinic. I want to know what you were doing there and what's in that envelope," Evelyn demanded, pointing to the object in Rachel's hands. Rachel hesitated but realized there was no escaping this situation. With a heavy sigh, she handed the envelope to Evelyn. "This contains information about an experimental treatment. It's something that could help children like Lily in the future. I went there to get more details." Evelyn opened the envelope and began reading the documents. The information seemed legitimate, but Rachel's lack of transparency still deeply troubled her. "Don't you understand that by hiding these things, you're destroying any chance of trust between us?" Rachel, now with tears in her eyes, responded, "I just wanted to do something good. I know I was wrong not to tell you everything, but my only goal was to help." Evelyn sighed deeply, trying to organize her thoughts. Despite the anger and frustration, something in Rachel's tone seemed genuine. She decided she needed a more controlled approach to resolve the situation. "Rachel, from now on, you won't do anything without my direct authorization. If I discover you've hidden anything else, you'll have to leave this house immediately. Do we understand each other?" Rachel nodded, clearly dejected. "Yes, Mrs. Harper. Thank you for giving me this chance." In the days that followed, Rachel completely changed her approach. She began sharing every detail of her activities with Evelyn, seeking to rebuild trust. Despite this, Evelyn remained vigilant. She felt there were still missing pieces to the puzzle. Shortly after, Lily's doctor called Evelyn with unexpected news. He had received a collaboration proposal from a clinic, claiming to have promising information about treating Lily's condition. Evelyn immediately connected the dots. It was the same clinic Rachel had visited. With her heart racing, Evelyn decided to visit the clinic personally. Upon arrival, she was greeted by a doctor who explained recent advances in their studies. He casually mentioned that a young woman had presented Lily's case as an example to justify inclusion in the research. Evelyn felt anger and betrayal rise again. Rachel had crossed all boundaries, even after countless conversations and warnings. Returning home, Evelyn knew this would be the final confrontation. This time, there would be no more chances. Chapter 7. Evelyn entered the house with determination. This time, she knew she could no longer ignore Rachel's actions. Lily was in the living room playing with building blocks under Rachel's supervision, who seemed oblivious to the hurricane Evelyn carried within. Evelyn took a deep breath before calling her. "Rachel, come with me to the office. We need to talk now." Rachel hesitated but left Lily playing and followed Evelyn. The heavy silence between them increased the tension with each step. As soon as they reached the office, Evelyn closed the door and faced Rachel with a stern look. "I went to the clinic where you were. I spoke with the doctor. He mentioned that you presented Lily's case as an example in a study. I want to know exactly what you're doing and why you're making decisions about my daughter's health without consulting me." Rachel turned pale, Evelyn's words hitting her like a blow. She tried to speak, but her voice failed. Finally, she managed to gather strength to respond. "Mrs. Harper, please listen to me. I never meant to deceive you or harm Lily. What I did was only try to help. When I saw that this clinic had information about experimental treatments that could be useful, I thought it was worth investigating. I would never do anything without your permission." "Then why did you present my daughter's case without even mentioning it to me?" Evelyn shot back, her voice raised. "I wanted to make sure the treatment was safe before bringing this option to you. I thought that if the results were promising, it would be a solution you'd consider." I know I was wrong to hide this, but my only goal was to help," Rachel responded, tears in her eyes. Evelyn shook her head, her frustration evident. "You've crossed every boundary. I trusted you to care for my daughter, not to make medical decisions behind my back. How do you expect me to believe you after this?" Rachel remained silent for a moment, her hands trembling. Finally, she spoke. "Mrs. Harper, I know I was wrong, but everything I did was because of what happened to my sister. I couldn't save her, and it destroyed me. When I saw Lily, I saw a chance to do something different, to truly be useful. But I realize now that my actions only made things worse." Evelyn leaned forward, her eyes fixed on Rachel's. "And what would you have done if something had gone wrong? Do you understand the gravity of this?" Rachel nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. "I understand, and I'm sorry. I know my intentions don't justify my actions. If you want me to leave, I accept that, but please believe that everything I did was thinking of Lily's well-being." Evelyn took a deep breath, trying to control her anger. She knew she needed to think clearly. As much as she wanted to throw Rachel out at that moment, she also knew that the young woman had cared for Lily with unquestionable dedication. She decided she needed time to decide what to do. "Rachel, I want you to go to your room and stay there until I decide what to do. I don't want you near Lily for now. I need time to think." Rachel nodded, looking defeated, and left the office without a word. Evelyn, now alone, felt the weight of the situation fall on her like an avalanche. She sat down and reviewed the documents she'd brought from the clinic again, trying to understand if there was any truth to Rachel's words. Meanwhile, Rachel was in her room, feeling helpless. The pain of being separated from Lily, even for a brief moment, was unbearable. She knew she had made mistakes, but she also believed her intentions were good. All she could do now was wait for Evelyn's decision. The next day, Evelyn decided to consult Lily's doctor again, this time presenting the documents obtained from the clinic. The doctor, though cautious, confirmed that some information seemed promising, but emphasized that any decision should be made with extreme care. "These studies are still in their early stages, Mrs. Harper. I can't recommend anything without deeper analysis, but I understand why someone might see this as hope." Evelyn returned home with mixed feelings. Although still furious with Rachel, she couldn't completely ignore the possibility that the young woman was truly trying to help. She decided she needed to hear more before making a final decision. That night, she called Rachel to the office again. This time, Evelyn's tone was more controlled, though still firm. "Rachel, I want you to explain everything. From the beginning, without hiding anything this time." Rachel nodded, seeming relieved to have the chance to explain. She told everything, how she learned about the clinic, what motivated her to seek information, and how she believed she could make a difference for Lily. She admitted her mistakes, but reiterated that she never intended to act without Evelyn's consent. After hearing everything, Evelyn remained silent for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "Rachel, your dedication is evident, but your lack of transparency almost destroyed the trust we built. I'll allow you to stay here, but under strict conditions. You won't do anything else without my approval. Understood?" Rachel nodded, clearly relieved. "Understood, Mrs. Harper. Thank you for giving me this chance." Although the conflict seemed temporarily resolved, Evelyn knew the impact of Rachel's actions wouldn't disappear so easily. The relationship between them was fragile, and Evelyn remained cautious. But for now, the priority was Lily, and Evelyn hoped that with doubled vigilance, she could protect her daughter from any future threats. Chapter 8. After the definitive confrontation between Evelyn and Rachel, the tension in the house seemed to have decreased, but hadn't completely disappeared. Evelyn maintained rigid control over every detail of Lily's routine, while Rachel did everything possible to regain the lost trust. The following weeks were marked by restrained interactions, where every movement was carefully measured. Rachel, aware that she was under constant surveillance, doubled her efforts to be transparent. She informed Evelyn about every activity, from Lily's feeding to playtime. Despite this, Evelyn continued to review the camera footage every night. She wanted to believe Rachel had changed, but the memory of the young woman's impulsive actions was still fresh in her mind. One night, while watching the recordings, Evelyn noticed something that intrigued her. During Lily's nap, Rachel took out a different cell phone from the one she usually used and made a quick call. Although the conversation was brief, Evelyn could make out a few words. "I need more time. It's not safe yet." Evelyn paused the video and stared at the screen. Who could be on the other end of the line? And what wasn't safe? Once again, doubts began to torment her. Evelyn decided it was time to take more drastic measures. The next day, she hired the private detective again, asking him to thoroughly investigate all of Rachel's connections, especially any links to the clinic. While waiting for the detective's response, Evelyn maintained a facade of normalcy. She continued to interact with Rachel professionally, without revealing her new suspicions. Lily, meanwhile, seemed increasingly attached to the young woman, which made the situation even more complicated for Evelyn. A few days later, the detective returned with troubling information. He discovered that the phone number Rachel used for the call wasn't registered in her name, but rather to an organization linked to controversial medical studies. Moreover, the clinic Rachel had recently visited was just one of several involved in experimental trials whose methods were frequently questioned. Evelyn felt anger and frustration return full force. She called Rachel to the office once more, determined to leave no doubt unanswered. "Rachel, I need you to explain something. Why are you using a phone that isn't registered in your name? And what is your real connection to this clinic?" Rachel became visibly tense, but tried to stay calm. I only used that phone to talk to a friend who works at the clinic. I didn't want you to think I was hiding something again." "Then why use a number that isn't registered in your name? That doesn't seem very transparent for someone who claims to want to regain my trust," Evelyn retorted, her voice laden with indignation. Rachel took a deep breath before responding. "I didn't know this would be a problem. The phone belongs to my friend, and he lent it to me so we could discuss the study details without interruptions. I didn't want to use my personal phone because you knew I might find out?" Evelyn interrupted. "Do you realize how this only makes your situation worse? Everything you've done since arriving here has given me reasons to doubt you." Rachel lowered her head, clearly defeated. "I know, and I'm sorry, but I swear my only intention was to help. I would never do anything to put Lily at risk." Evelyn sighed deeply, trying to control her emotions. As much as she wanted to believe Rachel's words, the evidence against her was difficult to ignore. "Rachel, I can no longer trust you," Evelyn finally said. "I want you to pack your things and leave this house today. Your presence here is no longer acceptable." Rachel remained silent for a few seconds before nodding. "I understand, I'll go, but please believe that everything I did was for Lily." While Rachel packed her things, Evelyn felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Despite everything, it was undeniable that Rachel had taken good care of Lily in many ways. But the lack of transparency and repeated secrets made it impossible to continue their arrangement. When Rachel finally left, Evelyn returned to Lily's room. She sat beside the crib and watched her daughter sleep. She felt exhausted, but also determined. She promised herself she would do whatever necessary to protect her daughter, even if it meant dealing with even greater challenges in the future. In the days that followed, Evelyn reorganized Lily's routine without Rachel. She hired another nanny, this time a professional recommended by a trusted agency. Although still apprehensive, she felt it was the best way to move forward. But even with Rachel's departure, Evelyn couldn't ignore a persistent feeling that the story wasn't completely over. Some questions remained unanswered, and the possibility that Rachel had genuine intentions, albeit poorly executed, continued to haunt her. Evelyn knew that, sooner or later, she would have to face these questions again. For now, all she could do was focus on Lily and ensure that nothing else threatened her daughter's safety and well-being. Chapter 9. With Rachel's final departure, Evelyn hoped tranquility would return to her home. However, the feeling that something still lingered in the air was persistent. Evelyn reorganized Lily's routine with the new nanny, Maria, who proved extremely professional from the start. Maria's experience brought needed stability, but Evelyn's unease wouldn't diminish. Days after Rachel's departure, Evelyn received unexpected mail. It was an envelope with no return address. Inside were a letter and a USB drive. The letter simply said, "If you want to know the truth, watch the videos. Rachel wasn't your enemy." Evelyn hesitated for a moment, but curiosity won out. She turned on her computer and inserted the drive. There were several video files, all dated during Rachel's time working in the house. Opening the first file, Evelyn realized it was a recording made by Rachel. She was sitting in her room, speaking directly to her phone's camera. If you're watching this, something went wrong. Mrs. Harper, I know my actions may have seemed suspicious, but please, listen to what I have to say. I discovered that Lily's condition might be being used as part of a study without your consent. Someone on her medical team appears to be involved. I tried to investigate alone to protect you. I hope you understand. Shock overtook Evelyn. She continued watching the videos, which included recordings of Rachel researching documents, speaking with contacts, and even recording phone conversations with medical team members. Each file added a layer to the narrative Rachel was trying to build. She wasn't conspiring against Evelyn, but trying to uncover a truth that no one else saw. In one of the final videos, Rachel revealed something alarming. I suspect Dr. Collins, Lily's primary physician, is involved in experiments that haven't been officially approved. He's used other patients before. I need more proof, but I can't continue alone. Evelyn paused the video and leaned back in her chair. Rachel's words directly contradicted everything she believed she knew about the doctor she trusted. She decided to act cautiously, but knew she couldn't ignore this information. The next day, Evelyn scheduled a meeting with Dr. Collins. During the meeting, she tried to keep the conversation casual but asked specific questions about treatments and any ongoing research. The doctor seemed uncomfortable, which only increased Evelyn's suspicions. Returning home, Evelyn reviewed all the videos again. She found a recorded conversation between Rachel and another nanny who had worked for a family previously treated by Collins. The woman confirmed that the doctor had used the child's data for a study without informing the parents. Evelyn felt a chill down her spine. If this were true, Lily could be in danger. Determined to uncover the truth, Evelyn contacted the private detective once more. She asked him to investigate Dr. Collins and his connection to any unauthorized research. While waiting for the results, Evelyn avoided any unnecessary contact with the doctor and strengthened security measures at home. A week later, the detective brought troubling news. He confirmed that Collins's name was linked to controversial experimental studies in other cities. Although records were limited, there was enough evidence to warrant a deeper investigation. Evelyn couldn't believe that a professional she trusted was involved in something so unethical. Evelyn decided to confront Collins directly. During the next appointment, she presented the evidence and demanded an explanation. The doctor tried to deny it initially, but faced with proof, finally admitted he had collected Lily's data for research without informing Evelyn. It was just for study purposes. Nothing was done directly to her, Collins said, trying to justify his actions. But Evelyn didn't want to hear excuses. You betrayed my trust and put my daughter at risk. This is unacceptable. I'm reporting you immediately, Evelyn responded, leaving the office furious. Back home, Evelyn felt a mixture of relief and guilt. Rachel had tried to warn her, but she wouldn't listen. Now, she knew she owed the young woman a great deal, even if it was too late to fix everything. In the following days, Evelyn took legal action against Collins and ensured Lily was seen by another trusted medical team. Although the trauma of the experience was still present, she felt she had finally regained control of the situation. While reorganizing her life, Evelyn decided to write a letter to Rachel. In it, she apologized for not trusting her and thanked her for everything she had done for Lily. She sent the letter to the only address she had for Rachel, not knowing if she would receive it. Days later, Evelyn received a response. Rachel wrote that she was relieved to know Evelyn had discovered the truth and that Lily was safe. In the letter, Rachel also admitted she had made mistakes and hoped that Evelyn might one day fully forgive her. Although they would never see each other again, the exchange of letters brought the closure Evelyn needed. Now, with Lily in good hands and away from any danger, Evelyn felt she could finally breathe. Despite the challenges and suspicions, the experience taught her a valuable lesson. Things aren't always as they seem, and sometimes people who appear to be enemies might actually be unexpected allies. Chapter 10. With the dark chapter involving Dr. Collins finally closed, Evelyn decided it was time to start over with more serenity. She knew she needed to rebuild the emotional stability that had been shaken by recent events. Lily, oblivious to the situation's complexity, continued her routine with the new nanny, Maria, who quickly proved to be a reliable and caring choice. In the months that followed, Evelyn reorganized her life, prioritizing time with her daughter. She decided to work from home more frequently to closely monitor Lily's development. Despite the apparent tranquility, there were still days when memories of past turmoil returned. On one of these days, Evelyn remembered something Rachel had said in one of the videos left on the USB drive. Never stop questioning the intentions of those who appear to be helping. These words remained etched in her mind and ended up shaping her new approach to life. Evelyn began adopting a more vigilant stance toward people who entered her inner circle, but without losing the ability to trust completely. It was a difficult balance to achieve, but one that proved necessary. On a sunny weekend, Evelyn decided to take Lily to the park for the first time in months. She wanted to give her daughter moments of lightness and joy. While Lily played on the swings, Evelyn sat on a nearby bench, watching her with a subtle smile. Beside her, an older woman struck up a conversation. "Your daughter is lovely. How old is she?" asked the woman in a gentle tone. "She just turned 2, replied Evelyn, feeling comfortable sharing some of the joy that Lily brought to her life. The conversation flowed naturally, and the woman shared that she was a retired pediatrician. Evelyn saw an opportunity to confide some of her recent concerns about Lily's health and the traumatic experience with Dr. Collins. Although careful not to go into specific details, she felt relieved to hear experienced and impartial advice. "You made the right decision by acting when you realized something was wrong," said the woman in an encouraging tone. "As a mother, your instinct is your greatest ally." These words echoed in Evelyn's mind as she returned home with Lily. She felt strengthened, realizing that, despite past mistakes, she had acted with determination to protect her daughter. This realization brought a peace she hadn't felt in a long time. As time passed, Evelyn began getting involved in initiatives that helped other mothers navigate complicated medical situations. Using her experience as a lesson, she started sharing information about how to identify signs of unethical practices and seek reliable help. It was a way to transform the pain and difficulties she faced into something constructive. Through one of these initiatives, Evelyn received an invitation to speak at an event about medical ethics. Although hesitant at first, she decided to accept. During the talk, she told her story without mentioning specific names, emphasizing the importance of questioning professionals and seeking second opinions. Trust is essential, but it must be earned through transparency and respect, Evelyn told an attentive audience. Afterward, she received warm applause and thanks from several people who identified with her journey. Among the event participants, Evelyn recognized an unexpected figure. Rachel was sitting at the back of the auditorium, watching her with contained pride. After the talk, Evelyn approached the young woman, who seemed uncertain about how to react. "Rachel, what a surprise to see you here," said Evelyn with a genuine smile. "I couldn't miss it," Rachel replied. "You've transformed what happened into something so positive. I'm happy to see that." The two talked for a few minutes, remembering the difficult moments, but also acknowledging the growth those experiences had provided. Evelyn thanked Rachel again for everything she had done for Lily, and Rachel, in turn, apologized once more for not being completely honest from the start. "I see now that I handled everything differently, but I'm happy things worked out for you and Lily," Rachel said sincerely. As they said goodbye, Evelyn felt that this meeting had brought definitive closure to the story. Although their paths led in different directions, there was a mutual respect that couldn't be erased. Back home, Evelyn felt lighter than ever. She put Lily to bed, sitting beside the crib for a few minutes. Watching her daughter sleep peacefully, she promised herself she would continue to protect her from any threat, but also that she wouldn't let fear govern her decisions. The journey had been long and full of twists, but Evelyn finally felt she had reached a place of balance. The experience had transformed her, making her stronger, more cautious, and above all, more connected to her own intuition. And with that, she was ready to move forward, knowing she would always do what was best for her daughter and herself. Chapter 11. The following months brought a period of stability for Evelyn and Lily. With the new routine established and past events behind them, Evelyn began to realize how recent experiences had shaped her outlook on life. The relationship with Maria, the nanny, grew stronger each day, and Lily seemed healthier and happier than ever. Still, Evelyn knew the lessons learned could never be forgotten. On an ordinary day working from home, Evelyn received an unexpected call from a lawyer. He informed her that the case involving Dr. Collins was moving forward in court, and Evelyn was called to testify as part of the process. Although she had conflicting feelings about reliving that story, she knew it was necessary to ensure other parents and children wouldn't go through the same experience. The following week, Evelyn appeared in court. Sitting in the courtroom, she observed Dr. Collins on the other side, surrounded by his lawyers. He seemed calm, but Evelyn knew that behind that facade was a worried man. When her turn to testify came, Evelyn reported every detail of her experience with Collins, omitting nothing. Her words were direct, but filled with conviction. "I trusted this man to care for my daughter, but he betrayed that trust by putting personal interests above a child's health. I don't want anyone else to go through what I went through," Evelyn declared, looking directly at the judge. Evelyn's testimony was well received, and she felt she had done her part. Leaving the courthouse, she met some of the other parents involved in the case. One of them approached to thank her. "Your words gave us courage to keep fighting," the man said with a grateful smile. Evelyn felt a wave of relief, realizing that her personal struggle was positively impacting other families. Back home, Evelyn reflected on how that situation had transformed her life. The desire to protect Lily had led Evelyn to face challenges she never imagined she could overcome. Importantly, it had shown her the importance of standing firm in the face of injustice. A few weeks later, Evelyn received another surprise. A letter arrived at her house, this time signed by the management of the clinic where Collins had worked. In the text, the clinic officially apologized for the doctor's actions and informed her that he had been dismissed. Additionally, the letter mentioned the implementation of new rigorous policies to ensure similar cases would never happen again. Although the apologies couldn't erase the past, Evelyn felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She knew her determination had made a difference, not just for Lily, but also for other children who might be in similar situations. However, Evelyn knew her mission didn't end there. She decided to create a project to support families facing complex medical issues. The project, called Family Protection Network, offered resources to help parents better understand their rights, recognize signs of unethical conduct, and find trustworthy professionals. The project launch took place at a local event, with Evelyn as the main speaker. During her speech, she shared her story honestly and emphasized the importance of not ignoring maternal instincts. As parents, our duty is to protect our children above all else. Even when we're doubted or confronted by professionals, we need to fight for what we believe is best for them, Evelyn told an emotional audience. The event was a success, and Evelyn received support from various organizations that offered to collaborate with the project. Among the participants was Rachel, who now worked as a volunteer in a support group for families in vulnerable situations. The reunion between Evelyn and Rachel was warm, and both expressed their mutual admiration. "I always knew you had something special, Rachel. Despite all the challenges, your dedication was always genuine," said Evelyn. "And you taught me to be more transparent and act with more care. Your words and actions inspired me to move forward," Rachel replied. With the project underway and her relationship with Lily stronger than ever, Evelyn finally felt she had achieved a state of peace. Her journey had been full of obstacles, but also valuable lessons. Now, with each step taken, she knew she was building a better future, not just for her daughter, but for many other families as well. Chapter 12. The launch of the Family Protection Network marked a turning point in Evelyn's life. Now, she could transform her pain and experience into something that helped others. Despite the project's initial success, Evelyn knew that its true impact would be measured by real changes in the lives of the families it reached. With this in mind, she continued to expand her efforts with tireless dedication. The work wasn't easy. Evelyn encountered resistance from some institutions that still minimized the importance of greater transparency and ethics in medical care. But for every closed door, there was another opened by grateful families or organizations willing to collaborate. The movement began to grow, with more people sharing their stories and uniting to protect their children's rights. One day, Evelyn received an unexpected email. It was from one of the parents who had participated in the case against Dr. Collins. He reported that, thanks to the Family Protection Network, he had managed to identify inappropriate practices at another hospital and prevented his daughter from undergoing unnecessary procedures. The emotional thanks reinforced Evelyn's certainty that she was on the right path. At home, the routine with Lily also reflected the new balance Evelyn had achieved. Lily was growing up healthy and curious, filling the house with joy through her daily discoveries. Maria, the nanny, continued to be essential support, allowing Evelyn to divide her time between her daughter and the project. The two women formed a solid partnership based on the trust that Evelyn had learned to value deeply. However, Evelyn still felt something was coming. And indeed, an unexpected surprise was about to cross her path. During a planning meeting to expand the reach of the Family Protection Network, Evelyn was informed that Rachel had been nominated for an award for her work as a volunteer in support groups. The news brought a genuine smile to Evelyn's face. "She deserves this more than anyone," Evelyn commented to her team. Rachel showed that even in the face of mistakes, it's possible to grow and make a difference. When the award ceremony day arrived, Evelyn was invited to participate as one of the presenters. She readily accepted, knowing it would be an opportunity to honor Rachel in a public and meaningful way. During the event, as she took the stage to speak, Evelyn looked directly at Rachel, who sat among the nominees, visibly moved. "Today, we celebrate people who chose to use their experiences to transform others' lives," Evelyn began. "And among them, Rachel stood out for her dedication and empathy. She shows us that no matter how difficult the journey, there's always a chance to make a difference." Rachel was called to the stage to receive the award, and the two shared an embrace that symbolized more than gratitude. It was a complete reconciliation. The audience gave a standing ovation, and Evelyn felt genuine pride in having been part of Rachel's journey. In the following days, Evelyn realized that life was finally bringing her the serenity she had long sought. Lily, now 3 years old, started attending preschool. The transition was smoother than Evelyn expected, largely because Lily was a sociable and curious child. Dropping her off at school on the first day, Evelyn felt a mixture of nostalgia and hope for the future. Returning home, Evelyn decided to review the expansion plans for the Family Protection Network. The next step was to create an online platform that could reach families across the country. This would require new partners and more resources. Evelyn called a meeting with her team and began outlining the strategies needed to transform the idea into reality. While working on the project, Evelyn received another piece of news that moved her. A major foundation had learned about her work and wanted to offer significant financial support for the online platform's development. The recognition was a landmark moment for Evelyn, who saw it as validation of all the effort she had dedicated. The platform's launch was a success. With interactive resources, webinars, and a team of experts, the Family Protection Network now reached thousands of families nationwide. Evelyn not only shared her story but also created a space where others could find support and guidance in difficult times. As time passed, Evelyn realized her life had completely transformed. The chaos and pain of the past gave way to a sense of purpose and achievement. Her relationship with Lily was stronger than ever, and the girl grew up surrounded by love and protection. Evelyn knew the future would still bring challenges, but she was confident she could face them with the strength and resilience she had cultivated. At the end of another productive day, Evelyn put Lily to bed and sat in her favorite armchair in the living room. She looked at her daughter's photos on the shelf and felt a deep sense of gratitude. The journey there hadn't been easy, but every step had been worth it. And with that, Evelyn smiled, ready to embrace whatever came next. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you have done in Evelyn's place? How far would you go to protect someone you love? Make sure to subscribe to our channel for more compelling stories that remind us that sometimes the greatest battles are fought not with strength, but with a mother's intuition. Remember, trust your instincts. They whisper the truth that others may try to silence.